second positioning is, in a sense, getting into the shoes of someone else. So when we ask someone to get into someone else's shoes, what we're asking them to do is not have a logical thought about what they might be thinking, what they might be doing. It is more likely to encourage them to actually be them. Now that sounds a bit spooky, but it's literally moving from where one is at the moment in terms of here I am, I'm sitting on this chair, I'm talking to you, but in a moment I've perhaps had an issue with somebody. I'd like to return to that particular situation, but as I take my mind back to that situation, I'm going to perhaps move and go and sit somewhere else in the space. I'm not going to do that now, by the way, but I would be thinking about moving to another space in the room that I would go to, and as I move to that space in the room, I will become that person. So I will become their gender, I'll become their age, I'll have that sense of who they are, how they hold themselves, how they talk, what their motivations are as I understand them, what their demotivations are, what their sensitivities are, what their preferences are, and would try and become that person in that situation that didn't go too well for me at the time. So that isn't thinking about them and analysing them. There's a bit of that to start with, which I'm doing here. It's the process by which I become that person in that situation, and then am looking at Angus MacLeod in another chair in the space, as a virtual Angus MacLeod in the space, in that situation, and what then I'm thinking and feeling as that person in that reality. Now it sounds very spooky, but it's a phenomenally powerful tool. Not because it necessarily provides the right answers, but because it gives insights. And whether the insights are wrong or whether they're right almost doesn't matter. That's a funny thing to say, isn't it? Why wouldn't that matter? You know, what are we doing it for? Well, what we're getting are some clues, some insights that we bring back, and then that then colours the way in which our mindset is reframed and how we then approach them in the future. So we can make this a lot more sophisticated, but I just want to get across this context, this idea of becoming that person, getting some information about how they are in that situation and learning something. So if I may, let me give you an example of a meeting I had some years ago. It was a business-to-business meeting. The chap I was talking to is probably early 60s, enormously successful, very rich. He had nursed and created and developed a phenomenal technology on an international basis, and we were selling a number of his products and a number of downstream products that we manufactured in the environmental sector at the time. So going back maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years. And in that meeting, I think there were 5, maybe 6 people, 2 or 3 on their side, 2 or 3 on our side. We got about 40 minutes in, 45 minutes in. I tend to get bored around about 45 minutes, so I sort of sat back a bit and in that meeting, and I second positioned. I had the time for a few moments just to imagine what it was like in reality to experience, not to think about being him and how he thought as a third party, but to be him, to become his age, to have the sense of having created this great product and downstream products, but also to have developed and grown that business enormously successfully and over many, many years. And as I did that, and I sat as him in that space, I had the sense that he really wanted to give us the business, to take on the business. I got the sense that he wanted to, he had a sense of the preciousness of this baby, this thing that he had created, that he needed to trust us as a team, to take it on and honour that product and those range of products that we took from him. And that it didn't take very long to do that, but when I went back, if you like. I was still sat there, but as I clicked back into the meeting and I saw him sort of leaning back in his chair, over the next minute or so, when there was an opportunity, I spoke. And I spoke in quite a different way. I summarised our position. I summarised our commitment to the product, our thoughts about the product. So I didn't sort of do lots of strokes about how brilliant he'd been or any of that. Didn't do that. Just talked about the product, how important it was, how it fitted so well to our business, how in a very honest way, perhaps a bit naively from a business standpoint, because it's going to cost us some money potentially to get this if we get this wrong. But that honesty and that approach turned the meeting. So from a meeting that didn't seem to be able to have any sort of resolution, it switched after that small short speech of mine to a completely positive meeting. He sat up, he leaned forward, and within 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes at the most, the top detail of our understandings were itemised and detailed for us to take on that business, which we then did. So that's just one example of how second positioning can take a situation. It might be a conflict situation, it might be a situation we don't understand only. To take those situations, get some understanding, which may not be right, but then that shifts our mentality, our mindset, so that we can then behave in a different way. And when we change something, of course, the world outside tends to change as well. By that I mean other people tend to respond differently to us. Very powerful, called second positioning, and it's being in someone's shoes as a reality, as an experience, not just as a sort of left brain logical exercise.